Welcome to North Idaho Experience. In today's episode, Dave and I sit down with Allyson Knapp. She is running for Kootenai County Assessor's Office. She's born and raised here in Coeur d'Alene, 30 years as an appraiser, has worked in the office before as the deputy director, and has been a realtor for 15 years. So she is very knowledgeable in all things real estate. This was an excellent and informative conversation, and wishing her the best of luck when it comes to the election in May. So get out and vote. And as a reminder, we are not publicly endorsing any candidates that come on this show. This is purely for information to the public. Enjoy.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So, Allyson, thank you for joining us. You are running for Kootenai County Assessor. I got it right. I didn't say tax assessor because you corrected me on that. Thank you. 30 years as an appraiser. That long as a realtor as well?
Nope, 15.
15 as a realtor. Okay. So you have a lot of knowledge in this area.
I know a thing or two when it comes to real estate.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the assessor's job, for those that don't know, what does the job entail?
Essentially, the assessor's job is we come out and assess your property for tax purposes. We want to make sure that they're fair and that they're set as of January 1st for every year. And that's pretty much the gist of it.
The tax is like a 4-letter word in Idaho, so it's risky here.
For sure. Taxes, I tell people sometimes we're almost so far that if you mention a tax on a ballot, it just gets knocked down.
Yes.
As the elected assessor, what is specifically your job? Obviously, there's a team, there's a whole department, right? What is your specific job? Is it just guidance, or do you get to make the final call, or how does that work?
Yes, definitely it is leadership. That's the biggest thing. I always say truly the chief deputy assessor is the one who runs the office. The assessor they're the ones who sign off. So it's just like when you run a business, when you're the CEO, you're making those final decisions, not all the little day-to-day decisions.
I was surprised when we had coffee last week about how large the assessor's office was.
Yes.
Right? My experience at the assessor's office, I walk in and there's like 3 ladies in a room. And I was like, oh, that's probably it, right?
There are 3 magical ladies who do everything.
But you told me how many employees do they have?
Roughly, well, when I was the chief deputy, we had 72 total.
72.
So it's going to be, it includes the mapping department. Obviously, that's where we get our plats, our segregations, and that's also where the county surveyor sits. And then we have obviously appraisers, a lot of them. We have residential and commercial, and then there's forestry, manufactured mobile homes, personal property, and then the DMV sits underneath us. We house them
That
as
one
well.
surprised me.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Let me back up real quick.
Yep.
You said something really interesting. You said when you were the
Chief deputy assessor.
Okay, and who did you say runs that department?
The
Okay,
chief-
so you've had some experience in this job. It's not just choosing that you want to be an elected official. It's something where you have actually had experience. How long were you the chief deputy assessor?
I didn't stay very long.
Okay.
I was there for just over 9 months.
Okay. So you had some experience kind of learning about what that job is and what it entails. Why did you leave? You mind if I ask?
I felt at that time the leadership, which is the leadership that's still there, was not serving the community the way it should be done.
Okay.
And so I left. I actually worked there 99 to 2002. I was also an appraiser in the assessor's office. So I've done a lot in the office.
I think that's important to know, right? Because you just talked about a position that's so important that really runs that office, and then you had it, but you left for a good reason, right? So I think that just people would want to know why you've been in and out of that position and you know what your experience with it. So that's good to know that you've held that position and also all the way down to an appraiser doing all that for homes. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. What makes you want to run for this office?
I was asked to run. I was asked by a few people. I thought about it for a very long time. At first, I was like, no. But then I thought about it, and honestly, if I can help them and make their lives better make work better every single day for them, give them the tools that they can do their best job, because pretty much everyone who works there actually loves working in that position. So I just said, all right, I'll do it.
So for an assessor, 'cause like I said, I told you we were sitting out there for a little bit before we started that a lot of people, myself included, don't really understand the complexities of some of these public offices. Even though we're voting people in, it has a tendency to be a bit of a popularity contest.
Yes.
Right? You can have people with no experience, but if they have a name, they can find themselves in a seat where they can obviously make decisions that affect everybody.
Or they're endorsed by a certain group or groups.
100%. And we're going to talk about that soon too. But so in that position, what is your... I guess what would be your ideal experience in that spot? What do you want to change? What do you feel needs to be changed?
Yeah. Again, the biggest thing in there is leadership. Okay. Leadership is going to help with morale. It's going to help with production. It's what helps us get the role out the door on time. Okay. And just, I mean,
culture is everything in a workplace.
Really
we talk
is.
about this in law
really
enforcement
is.
a lot. Like, Idaho, the wages don't necessarily match up with Washington wages for law enforcement, right?
For sure.
But the culture's generally better, and the community is better. So that's a huge draw for people. I don't know what the wages are in the assessor's office, but all the wages in Idaho seem to be on the lower end.
Yes.
So having a good culture will retain qualified, experienced people, which is what we need.
Yeah, historically, the assessor's office has been a very tight-knit family, and people stayed there 30, 40 years. Wow. I mean, there are appraisers there that started when I left in 2002.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like their lifetime. I mean, it's great benefits, so that kind of makes up for some of the wage, but it just was a culture of where you wanted to work.
Now, as an assessor, do you have to go out on people's property?
Yeah, so once statute says once every 5 years, we have to physically look at every single property in the county. So
what does that mean, physically look? Exterior, inside?
No,
exactly?
not inside, exterior.
Okay. Drones?
And, we don't have drones.
There are places doing that, I've heard. So not in Idaho.
I mean, we have like aerial drones, but no. And it's mostly we want to see what's on the property. Not so much anymore, but back in the day, it would be vacant land. We show up and it is not vacant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or it's a shop and they have a satellite dish and the telephone pole. We don't do any of those things anymore, but yes.
So, obviously Idaho's a different, it's like its own country, right? Like it really is.
And so is North Idaho.
Different than Southern. Different than Boise. We always say it's not Northern Idaho, it's North Idaho. So, I bring that up because when you walk on people's property, this is definitely, I tell people, look, people are happy to have you over, but on their terms. Yes. And so people that walk on properties, assessors, makes people really nervous because there is a huge distrust in government in North Idaho. That is what it is. Yeah. So how does that, I guess, how does that play into your role as assessor? And is that something what are the effects of having an assessor come on your property? Yeah.
So I will say we do take the no trespassing signs very seriously. We don't just barge onto your property. We are just there to see if our records are correct. That's truly what it is. And maybe your house burnt down, or that's what we're doing, is we're just doing that. Okay. And so when we go to people's house, obviously we always knock. If you're not there, we leave a card and usually we'll come back another time. We're not going to go tromp through your property while you're not home.
Safe thing to do in Idaho. Can you take that cord and loop it around the end of the table? Yes, thank you.
There you go.
So I think there's like I said, with a big mistrust in government in general, right? It being in any elected position there, you're going to have people that go like, oh, if you're elected, you've been bought off, you've done these things. I will say from the layman's perspective, when an assessor comes on the property, I think I speak for a lot of people that are uneducated on this, myself included, right? When an assessor comes on your property, the threat is that they're going to now value your property more and you're going to have to pay more taxes to this inefficient government.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And that is not true because how our taxes are done here, it's we do the budget and the taxing districts, and then we come up with what the tax rates are, and then it's distributed evenly based on your values. It's not, I mean, truly, if your value went up, there is a good chance you're going to pay less taxes. It's just how it's divvied out.
Okay. Is that all based off the levy and stuff like that?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, you explained that to me last week, and it surprised me because I was like, well, it's a non-disclosure state, which I want to get into that later and what that actually means. But boy, when they assess the taxes on my house, they seem to get pretty darn close to what I paid for it.
Yes.
And I've always wondered about that. Thank you. And so, yeah, I was like, oh, how's that work? But then you explained to me that it's an average out of all of the homes.
Yes.
I was like, okay, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why you want your value to be fair. We also want to make sure that all the properties are on the roll. So all that new construction, all the commercial, it's actually on the roll. So that's why you want it to be very thorough and fair, not so much that it's the exact value of what you could sell it for tomorrow.
Gotcha. And how are the levy rates figured out? Because there's an interactive map, and I've looked at it before because people ask us that a lot. Like, you know, how what are the taxes going to be on this house I want to purchase? And it's very confusing.
It is.
And that like the little areas are so different.
Yes,
all
that's
across.
like a treasurer question.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, we really don't do much with taxes.
Okay.
I always like to explain it kind of like if you're going to go to the store and buy a jacket. So instead of the house, it's now a jacket. Mm-hmm. My job is to put the price tag on the jacket. So I'm going to look at it. I'm going to see what size it is, quality, the condition, and I put the price tag on. Checkout is over at the treasurer's office.
Okay.
The treasurer is the one who takes our price tag, prints the bill, gives it to you, takes your money. So I'm the price tag. That's checkout.
Well, that seems to be something that people are really concerned about, right? Is the price tag.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, I mean, in that scenario, people go shopping, they see the price tag, and they're sticker shock, and they're out.
Yes. But
So-
I can give you a coupon. It's called a homeowner's exemption. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you're a senior, there's circuit breaker. That's a huge savings on your taxes.
I was gonna ask about a few of those. So, do you mind if we jump into those?
Yeah, no, because I had a
Okay.
question about one too. Yeah.
All right. So the homeowner's exemption, just for clarity, for anybody that's moving to Idaho, if it's your primary residence and you get one primary residence,
Yes.
you can take up to $125,000 or half the value, whichever is less,
Yes.
okay, off the value of your property. Is that correct?
Correct.
So of your assessed value, if you're assessed at $1 million, you'll pay taxes on $875,000.
Correct.
That makes sense? Okay.
Yes.
So obviously makes sense to you. That was a weird way to say it.
It makes sense to me. It makes sense.
So the circuit breaker, so my mom's applying for this right now. So widow, over 65, minimal income.
Yep.
What are the requirements? Is that it or are there other ones?
That's pretty much it. And I do know that usually before when you went in the office, they would help you, but I'm pretty positive you get to take off a lot of your medical expenses first before we say this is your income, because that is seniors. That's a huge chunk of their income is going to their medical expenses. So that comes off, and then what's left is how you get to qualify.
Okay.
And it's a good savings, and that is actually done at the State Tax Commission. We just kind of take the paperwork, and then they're the ones who let us know.
Okay.
What else? We have timber exemption.
Yeah.
Is there? Oh, can you explain that one a little bit?
A timber exemption is you have to have a forestry plan, and we have a forester that helps you with that. But you have to have at least 5 acres or more.
We have one too. It's called ChatGPT. I shouldn't tell you that.
Okay.
Though.
Yeah. So this is really funny to me. You have to explain it to me like apparently I'm a third grader because I went in there. I have one. Okay. We have 8 acres and we have a timber
Quit bragging,
exemption.
dude. I've got 5 and I don't get one.
No big deal.
Right.
Well, we went up there and I probably went into that office and talked to that girl about 9 times. And I'm like, okay, explain this to me again. Like, what does it mean? So can you explain? I understand that there's like the clear cutting and there's another way to do it. And then she kept talking about me paying them. And I'm like, I'm so confused with how this works.
Yeah. And I can't say that I know all the ins and outs of that because there is ag exemptions and forestry. And so when you get into the clear cutting and the management of the property, that is not really something I've ever done.
Right.
That's a very specialized person, but
And just to be clear, you don't actually have to cut down a tree.
you do not.
You have to have a plan to.
You have to have a plan, and you have to tell us the plan.
Right.
Yes.
My understanding was you're only taxed for like an acre around your house or something and the home value, and then not on the rest of the land. That's see, I don't know anything about it either, so that's
Yeah.
right.
So I think on our roll, they call it an R site, which is like your resident site, and it's the first acre. So in their theory, the first acre holds the most amount of value. And
Okay.
so that's why it's 1 acre, and then the excess is where you get the tax break.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I know it saves you money. That's about all I know. I
That's
went
good.
down and did it.
It's good money it saves you.
Yeah.
I think there's one for disabled veterans if they're 100%
Yes.
disabled as well. Is that
Yep,
right? Okay, that's a huge
absolutely.
one. We have a lot of veteran listeners out
Yes.
there. Do you know the break on that? Off the
That
top of your
one,
head?
I don't. That, again, the state tax commission
Okay.
does a lot of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting stuff.
What other ones are there? Are there any other ones we can think of? Are those the 4?
Those are the
I
ones I've
think-
ever dealt with.
Yeah, I think that is it.
Okay.
Do you have something else? I wanted to get into the homeowner's exemption. 'Cause
Yeah,
you
do
had
we
that
have that?
form. She has it with her.
Is that here?
Yeah.
Okay, so the homeowner's exemption, we tell people about this all the time, and here's, so my first question, and this is the new form that's going to be in here.
Yes.
So with the homeowner's exemption, anytime we close a home with somebody, we advise them, hey, make sure you go down and do this, and we'll kind of harass them until they get it done. We make sure, because we want them to save money on taxes. However, what we typically tell them is don't tell them the assessed value. So I wanted to give you 2 scenarios and see how it affects.
Okay.
Obviously, this is a non-disclosure state. So if you're going to give or get a homeowner's exemption, you do not have to tell them how much you paid for the home.
Correct.
So when we tell them that, let's say I purchased a home at $500,000. Okay. And that property currently is assessed at $400,000. And I come in and I say, I choose not to disclose. If I were to tell you that I bought it for $500,000, how does that change my assessment, or will it?
Not necessarily that it will. What it does is it gives us information as to, so let's take Coeur d'Alene Place, because that's a subdivision we all know.
Yep.
So when we look at Coeur d'Alene Place, we're going to gather all the, we're going to gather all the sales, and we're going to narrow it down to size, quality, condition. And then we're going to look, okay, it looks like this year the homes in Coeur d'Alene Place went up about 5%. That gives us the knowledge as to how to trend all of the properties in that neighborhood, because we're not appraising your house every single year. We only physically come to your house once every 5 years. The rest of the time, we're looking at a whole neighborhood. That's the mass appraisal.
Got it.
So we're just looking at, is the neighborhood coming up or are values going down?
Okay.
That's-
And vice versa. Is there any benefit to buying a house for $500,000? And it's assessed at $600,000. Is there a reason that we should come to you and say, hey,
Yes.
okay, so what's the benefit there?
Yeah, that's just telling us that we're way off on our value.
Okay.
We need to correct that. And we also might have some questions. Why do we say there's a 3-car garage and your house really only has a 2-car garage? Is it incredibly dated inside? Was it trashed when you bought it? I mean, there are definitely outliers as to why you would pay $100,000 less.
Okay. No, that's good to know, because, I've had people that have bought a home and looked at the assessment. I'm like, you might want to tell them that
Yes.
you paid less than for this.
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't know how that works. I don't know if that means that now all of a sudden their house gets assessed for $100,000 less, or if it's still that, kind of that overarching community.
Right. Well, they're probably going to reach out to you, that appraiser, because there are different appraisers for all the districts. That appraiser will probably reach out to you and ask you some questions.
Oh, cool.
Being
Okay.
those types of things. But you definitely, once you get your assessment every single year, you have a certain amount of time. You have 30 days. You can actually come in and appeal your assessment. And you can tell us why you think it's worth what you think it's worth. And then if we don't change it and you don't like that, you can actually take it to the Board of Equalization.
Yeah, my house is worth $300,000.
I tried that once. So we had a house on 3rd Street right downtown. And as the we hit that peak in 21, somewhere in there. And as it started coming down, we had our house listed for sale and it wasn't selling. And that was, we were now below the appraised value. So we got that assessment and I went in and I said, well, I know it's not worth that much because it's not selling for that much. And I actually got shot down. They said, yeah, I didn't hear about, taking it to a board. I don't know if I would have even gone to that level or not, but it was kind of frustrating to me because I was like, oh, well, so I'm not actually accomplishing anything here. And I feel like I had pretty good proof that it wasn't worth that.
Yeah, that is when you take it, when you appeal it, because who you're going to is the Board of County Commissioners. They work as our Board of Equalization. So they will sit there and listen to your side of it, and they absolutely can rule in your favor.
Okay. It did come down, but the next cycle as home values came back down.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is we always have to remember that we're looking at this value as of January 1st of each year. So when it's June and prices have gone down, you're not going to actually see that reflected until the following year.
Because we pay taxes in the rears here. Okay.
Because we pay taxes in the rears.
This form here, this is not the one I have never filled out this form.
Yes.
I just took it right out of your hand.
That one? Yeah.
The one I filled out had like 3 check boxes and 2 lines that I filled out. This is extremely confusing and in-depth. And I think if you read into the details here, it's
a little invasive.
Yeah. How do you feel about this form?
I think that is an overreach. That is something the current assessor put in, I believe, December.
Okay.
So it's fairly new.
So if you're elected, will you go back to the old form?
Yes.
Okay. Because we're in the business. We do this every day. And I'm like, I don't want to fill that out.
It's a lot. And, the only law that actually changed was you now have to have an Idaho driver's license in order to get a homeowner's exemption.
Which takes some time to
get.
It
does. Because you need to take in utility bills. So you have to have lived there for a few months in your name. Obviously, you would have the deed in your name.
Do you have to be a U.S. citizen to get a driver's license in Idaho?
I think you do.
Do you have to be here legally?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I'm just wondering.
I'm pretty sure you do.
I'm pretty sure.
It's Idaho. Come on.
I've never lived anywhere else. So.
I've actually never asked. So do any of these, so my question is, obviously we know the primary, right? It has to be your primary residence. Yes. Do any of these other questions on here, if I check no or yes, does it change my eligibility for it?
Well, on that form, I think it states that to get your full exemption, I was like, you either get one or you don't.
Right.
So I don't understand what that is meant to be.
Well, if that was the case, you'd think if there was a weighted question on here that said, well, if you answer no to this, you lose 25% of that exemption, you feel like that would be on here.
You would think, but that is not statute. So we couldn't pull that off.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you can get a partial. Have you seen anybody get issued a partial homeowner's exemption?
Never.
So this would open the door to something like that.
I don't know that. I mean, yes, I would agree that would open the door to that, but I don't know how that would even be pulled off.
Yeah.
Because as it is right now, it's kind of like a switch in the system. Either you have it or you don't. So it's a yes, no, not a halfway.
Like, why would they need to know if it's held in a trust or an LLC? I feel like that's weird.
Right. My house is.
Yeah. It's honestly a homeowner's exemption. You just need to show us that it's your primary residence. So we're going to want to see your driver's license, your voter registration, that your vehicles are registered there.
Yeah.
Utility bills. Like, that's all you need. That one. Yeah, asking for your mortgage and insurance, and to me
this is like when lawyers get involved in anything.
Yes.
This is what this is. This is not Idaho.
No.
That bugs me.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so that just complicates it a little bit. And I know that title companies for a while were helping with the homeowner's exemption.
Oh, yes.
Filing those. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I wouldn't say I believe back in the day, they would actually already have the forms there and be like, oh, just fill this out. Because we used to walk you into the assessor's office and say, don't forget to do this. You want to do this. And you could fill it out before you actually even moved in. And it would take, effect as of the date that you put there. But
So, when you pay attention to the federal government right now and everything that's going on, and Doge, when they were involved, and Elon and all that stuff, that's probably a bad word for some people.
But
anyways,
got us banned from YouTube.
I know, whatever. So, with everything going on, there was this overwhelming sense of fraud that's happening within the government. And usually when you look at the systems that are in place, they are meant to prevent fraud, even though there's ways to work them and they don't do what they're supposed to do. But I would think that something like this, that is more invasive, that asks more questions and has more restrictions, is really out there to prevent fraud. So my question is there a bunch of fraud going on with people applying for homeowners exemptions that it's not their primary residence? Is that a big issue that the assessor's facing?
I've not ever had that come up. Definitely we would have maybe one or two people would say, oh, they don't live there. And so we would go check it out.
Yeah, but that's not massive. That doesn't call for time and energy and attorneys to change stuff.
Right.
So why is this being brought up?
Because I'm running against him.
That interests me, right? Because you want people. I always said when I was a fire captain, we would go out and I would have a crew. We'd go out to we go out to some sort of wildland fire, and truthfully, for the first 24 hours, we were able to do some work. Right. Yes, for any guy that's worked on a crew for the fire department, you get out there on initial response, and you can almost turn your radio off. I mean, you get a lot of work done, right? Yeah. Everybody's tired. I mean, you're bumping a fire, doing all this stuff, and then the government gets involved, and you get an incident management team there. You get all the bigwigs that fly in, and now they're going to take over. They're going to get everything organized. And there's a reason for it, right? It keeps people safe. It helps get everything, whatever. It helps to develop a plan. There's a reason for it. However, I've always said if you want to slow things down and make them ineffective, get government involved. And that's like what this stuff is. Why? I don't understand why these types of documents have to come out if we're not dealing with something that is actually causing a monetary loss to the people in North Idaho. It right. feels like there could be better efforts put towards other things in the assessor's office than creating a new form that is more confusing, requires more training, obviously enlisted attorneys, and probably took a year to even develop. Who knows?
No, he did it within 2 months.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So what happened is he came after my homeowner's exemption, essentially saying that I don't live here, so that then I can't run against him.
Do you live here?
I live in Rathdrum.
Okay.
How long have you lived in North Idaho?
I was born and raised here.
Okay, so a while. So at least 20 years.
Over 50.
She's got grandkids, dude.
Yes. So you've had a homeowner's exemption pretty much whenever you owned a home.
I haven't lived here the whole entire time. But yes, in this particular home, I have been there since 22. And now it's an issue.
Why would he say you didn't live here?
4 years later. Well, at first he said it was an anonymous citizen. And then the next time he said that people were stopping him in the grocery store to tell him that I don't live there.
They were that concerned about you?
Oh, yes. And now he says that he does an annual audit. And so,
on you?
No, on everybody. On everybody. And so I'm like, okay. Wow. So yeah, this is what came up because of it. So I appealed.
This is the Allyson Knapp form.
It is. I appealed. I won.
This is good.
Here's the most disturbing part of this, and you've highlighted it, so it clearly disturbs you too.
Yeah.
It's this paragraph right here. I'm going to read it to you guys because this gives me a little bit of anxiety. I hereby grant permission to the Kootenai County Assessor and his deputies, agents, and representatives, and any government agency, any utility company, private or public, any insurance company and their agents and brokers, any mortgage company, and any other person or entity providing services of any kind to the subject property to confirm my occupancy and status relative to Idaho state residency, and to release to the Kootenai County Assessor whatever information he deems necessary to verify. Says he, huh? He deems necessary to verify and confirm my residency and occupancy of the subject property. So, to get my exemption, I have to sign this form.
Correct.
And then give away all of these rights, which are rather vague in my opinion. I don't like that at all, and I don't think anybody who moves to North Idaho would like that. That's just inviting people to come. Seek your way of life.
And I mean, I think it's interesting that it says that it could be shared with any other government agency.
Right.
I'm like, what other government agency needs to know about my mortgage? Or
so to go after that statement, Idaho code, is it state code that allows the homeowner's exemption?
It's, yeah,
Okay.
63602G.
Got it. I see that on there. So in terms of that, with that code, what are the requirements for a homeowner's exemption under that code?
You need to prove that it's your primary residence.
Got it.
And typically those are done with those items: driver's license,
Okay.
voting
And
registration.
it's reasonable to say, any other counties requiring, or other counties are requiring those items, right?
Yeah, those are the typical.
Are
Yes.
any other counties requiring you to give up rights
No.
to information from other entities to do that?
Any other entity?
That's weird, because it seems like the burden of proof is on you,
Yes.
and this kind of allows
an open door for
Right. To
ask
somebody-
whatever you want.
right, and for
Yes.
other entities other than yourself attempt to disprove
Right.
that you were, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like that.
So yeah, we as realtors have sent that down to the Idaho Association of Realtors, and they have reviewed it and they're working on it.
Yeah, that seems like some BS.
Yeah.
It is some BS. What other changes would you like to see, or are there any if you are elected?
I don't know that I would specifically say changes as much as I would like to see it flow better. I would like to see a happy team working together, getting things done. Honestly, the whole office is run by statutory dates. So we have things to do that have to get done in order to make the rest of the county run. Because we start the value, we're the front of the chain. So it's us, then the treasurer, then the auditor. And so if we don't get things out the door on time, it messes up everybody
Okay.
else.
I had a question, but it slipped my mind. It'll come back.
That's okay.
When is the election?
May 19th is primaries, and that's the big one always because we're all Republicans.
So let's talk about that. Let's dive into this. We'll see who gets fired up here. So are you currently endorsed by the Kootenai County Republicans? What is it? KRCC?
KCRCC.
KCC?
KCRCC.
The Kootenai County
Republican Central Committee. That's
yes,
it. Yeah.
correct.
Got it.
Yes. I am not, and neither is my opponent.
Okay.
They had a split on us, and so neither of us got endorsed.
Is anyone else running that you know of? Okay.
Oh, actually, I heard there was an independent.
Okay.
But that's not part of the primary or any of us. So
So
I
you-
do have other endorsements.
So you can plead the fifth on this if you want, because some
Okay.
people are uncomfortable with it. But how do you get endorsed by KCRCC?
They have a vetting system that you go through. First, there's a questionnaire. You meet with one group. Then after that, if you're moved on, then there's another interviewing. It's like a panel of 12 people.
Yeah.
And you sit with them. And then after that, I actually got another 23 questions after that interview.
Okay.
And then they vote.
Do they give you a reason why they don't endorse, or do they just say they don't endorse?
Well, no, it's voted on. So we see that at the end of the vote, we get to see. And so it's based on how many people show up to vote in the KCRCC, and it's 50% plus one. So in our case, we needed 31 votes to get it, and neither of us got 30.
Got it.
Okay.
So then there's no endorsement.
I think there's a lot of hesitation that's forming with groups like that. Groups like that, I feel they form for very, I feel they can form for very positive reasons, right? Trying to collectively get like-minded people to follow suit and be able to provide information and those types of things. The problem that I'm seeing right now is that you're starting to have some very staunch conservative individuals running for office that are not seeking endorsement by KCRCC.
Yeah.
And by not seeking that, you start to create a divide within a party.
Yes.
Now, I've never been one of those people that says, I honestly, I would truly say, even though I find myself extremely conservative, I'm always willing to ride party lines in terms of consideration, because I think that there's never 100% a correct side to things. I really don't. I think things have to be intelligently collected. And I think we do very little of that as voters. So we have a tendency to be like, well, I am conservative, so this is where I'll vote, and I'll go to the least path, the easiest least
Path of least resistance.
path of least resistance, which would be KCRCC, right? You can walk up there to go vote, and they'll hand you a card and say, "Hey, here's your voting card." And you're like, "Right on, this is what I'm voting for." And then you got everything already filled out in front of you. You go in there and you just match the boxes, right? You're just
I
playing a
have
game.
been guilty of that. I get it.
100%. And when I first moved up here, I'm like, "Oh, sweet, yeah, I don't want Idaho to change." And you guys are saying like,
Yes.
However, the problem is, and you see this happening right now throughout our country, is that you start to get two very distinct parties, right? And then if you don't stay in that party, then your party starts to weaken, especially if one of those parties starts to divide.
Yeah.
Right? I think one of the worst things that could happen in North Idaho is to have the conservative groups divide into multiple other conservative groups, into where there's not an actual candidate that everybody really believes in, right?
Right. And that is what we have.
So that I'm not against an endorsement by a group. I am against the idea that if you're not endorsed by a group, that you're not the right candidate. Make sense?
Yeah.
So
I have seen that firsthand with guests that we've had on here in the past that did not get elected, more for city council type stuff, but
Sure.
Because they didn't have that endorsement and did not seek the endorsement. And I agree with you. That's troublesome.
There are definitely ones, though, who have won, although I do feel like the few that have pulled it off that have said, I'm not running, or I'm not having your endorsement and I'm just running myself, are native, born and raised here.
Right.
So...
And it doesn't mean we don't agree with that. It's
Right.
just, I feel like it shouldn't have to be that way.
Right. Right now, there are two camps, and that's the KCRCC and the NIR, which is North Idaho Republicans.
And when you form those camps, you have a tendency to vehemently resist each other.
And the problem with that is now you've got a fractured conservative base and the liberal base, which is here in some capacity, is often more unified. And that does not do well for our politics up here, in our opinion.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you
Especially
look
when
for-
they both say Republican in them.
Right.
Right.
Well, people have tied themselves to a color and a name, right? When truthfully, you start to get lost when you tie yourself to a name and a color. You start to lose track of what's actually happening. I mean, look at President Trump, right? I voted for Trump. I would not have voted for the other person. Okay. But when I look at it and I see it, a lot of times people say, "Oh, I voted for Trump." And I have a tendency to ask, well, why? Well, I really like him. I'm like, well, what do you like about him? Well, I like that he's just no bullshit. He does this. That's great. So he's the most powerful person in the world. What do you actually like about him? Do you know of any of his policies? Somebody will say, like, I love his economic policy. I'm like, tell me a couple parts of that policy. Nobody really knows. And that's the tough part. I mean, obviously at a presidential level, you start to get so complex. There's so many things. But on a local level, I think we owe it to ourselves to say, Allyson, what is it that you want to change? Why do you think you'd be good for this? Is it really the morale of keeping everybody working well? And it's protecting people's rights by not putting more roadblocks for somebody being able to get an Idaho guaranteed exemption on your primary residence.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Is there major fraud? Are we preventing these things? Because if we start to tie ourselves to a color or a name, we have a tendency to lose our own knowledge base, to be able to go in and say, well, why should I vote for you? What is it, as opposed to, oh, I'm a Republican. Perfect.
Right. Well, and it's funny because one of the questions the KCRCC asked me was because I don't have a very strong voting record. And I was like, well, that's true in the fact that I pretty much focused on being a mom, running my businesses, and I have been, I would say, volunteering. I've been our MLS president 2 different times, and I was also a state political coordinator for the Idaho Association of Realtors. So when I got to that position is when I was like, oh, so like, okay, this kind of matters, because that's when I'm a liaison between our legislators that are up here and our property rights, because that's what we do as realtors. We want to protect your property rights. So when I'm discussing these things with them, that's when you start to notice things at a local level actually really matter. And then once I got into the assessor's office and you find out that people are elected and they can't actually be fired, it's like, wow, they actually have a lot of power.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, and they are making big decisions. So until I stepped into that, I really did not know how important it is for us to pay attention locally at the local level.
I think when you talk about people standing there and incumbents, right?
Yeah.
That's written on the ballot.
Yeah.
Incumbent.
Yeah.
Well, when you have a massive influx like 2020 to 2023 and people coming here because they love it here.
Yeah.
And then they have to go vote and they don't have time to know who you are, who anybody else is. And they just look at it and they go, well, I don't want things to change. And I love the way it is. So incumbent.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And not truly, like you said, looking into the candidate and seeing if there are actual real issues.
Yeah.
This is the exact reason that we started Idaho Court Watch, because incumbent, right?
Yeah.
Oh, everything's great. Crime is really low here. These judges must be amazing. And there are a lot of amazing judges here, but there are a few that are not.
Right.
And having the ability to provide that information to the public in a nonpartisan, unbiased way, just give them facts so they can make an informed decision, is hugely important. I think we are lacking a lot of that, unfortunately.
Well, and a lot of it is trust.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who do you trust? And you trust somebody for a little while, and then they get that one candidate that goes rogue, and then it's like, oh, we don't trust them anymore. And it's hard to get the trust back.
And the unfortunate thing is that even us just having this conversation, I'll get two types of comments on our YouTube channel. I will get, you guys are too conservative. That'll be from the liberal side. And then you're not conservative enough. We'll hear that too from the conservative side. It's like, well, we're just trying to have discourse. Can we not get back to a world where we can just sit down and have these conversations?
People don't want that.
They don't want that. But it's not perfect. This is the most perfect country, I think, to date in history of the world, but it's not perfect. And we have to recognize that. And to get back to these discussions, I think, is important.
Yeah, there's a lot of very hardcore polarizing individuals up here that have one way or the highway.
Yes.
And God bless you for that. That's great. But there is a little bit of, I've had people call me and we had somebody reach out recently and very left wing called and said, hey, you guys seem like you're no BS. Talk to me about this because here's my situation. They laid out a whole situation as to their family, their kids, what they like, dislike, where they lean. And they said, can we move to Idaho? And I said, you can absolutely move to Idaho. I said, nobody has an issue with good people. However, the lifestyle that you lead, I'll tell you right now, I don't agree with. It's not going to be well accepted if you try to push it on anybody. If you try to create community, people will accept you for who you are, but they're not going to accept the values and ethics and morals and things that come with that, right? So if you're looking for people to, in a lot of places, just tell you, vote however you want. People are not going to do that up here. They're going to tell you, hey, there's a certain way that we like it, and don't come here and change it. Yeah. So they ended up saying thank you, and they're not moving here. But
it's amazing that we can talk to a client like that, a potential client, right? Mm-hmm. And it's important, right? We are unapologetically ourselves, and we always believe in telling the truth, and that was the truth that they needed to hear.
Yes, before they spent a ton of money, and were miserable.
Yeah, and ultimately that's probably what would have happened for them. So it was good that they reached out, and good that you gave them an honest answer. I don't know that every person up here in real estate would have given that honest answer. So good job, Dave.
It is what it is. So let me ask you this. You sounded like you had a little bit of background in politics in general, just from the state and other things. Have you seen a dirty side of all this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so naive. Like I go in, all right, yay, let's do this.
Yeah, we're here for good.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And then, people come after you.
Who comes after you? I mean, is it more like groups, commissioners, council members? I mean, who comes after you? When you're running for stuff like that?
When you're running for stuff like that, I'd say it's a mix. Obviously, it is the general population because they all have an opinion on Facebook about who you're standing next to.
There's nothing like being on a couch with a good Facebook evening.
Just
Making
rage
comments.
baiting.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, we get a lot of that. We have on our comments on our YouTube and our social media, we get a lot of that. There's even a section in YouTube that's like it's the nasty comments, and if YouTube filters them out, and every now and then I tiptoe in there just to like get my heart rate up, and then I'll send some to Dave, and he gets fired.
Actually,
up.
that's not true. He only sends me like 2 or 3 of them. So if you're talking crap on me, I'm probably not going to see it because Seth won't even let me see it.
I have to filter.
He wants me to keep my heart
I need
rate
Dave
down.
to focus.
Yeah.
Well, and that is something you actually do in politics is you have these rings. And it's like, if it gets to me, then it's pretty serious. But yeah, my team filters it out and it's like, don't pay attention to that.
Yeah, that's good. That's healthy to do that.
It is. Yes. Yeah. And then you definitely have your trusted people on your inner ring and they give you information as well.
Yeah. I think honestly your best route, Allyson, is if you truly have a heart for the community, you truly see something that you can fix, things that you can prevent, and you're just honest on it, people are going to vote for you or they're not.
Right.
And truth be told, if you get in a position because people voted for you and you were honest about it, then that's great. And if you have to make concessions along the way, you get to live with that, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, as far as I say, if you're gonna put yourself in that position, you just have to choose whether or not you're going to. The position is more important, or your values and what you started doing it for is more important.
Right. Yeah.
We were just talking about yesterday on the podcast we did with John Padula, who's running for Kootenai County Commissioner, seat 1. The importance of platforms like this in today's age, because. Someone running for office typically has, they've got like 5 minutes of talking points, right? And that's often all you'll ever get.
Right.
But when we sit down for an hour, we're well past that. So we get to know the real person behind it, which I think is super valuable for the public to see that, because anybody can have good talking points. But to understand the character and the values of that person takes an hour-long conversation, at least. So we're happy to provide that. And I have to say this because someone's going to come out here and be like, well, you didn't give me an opportunity. I did not reach out to Allyson. She reached out to us. And we will open this platform to anybody to have these conversations. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. We'll have that conversation if we can fit it in prior to the election. So don't come after us. You reach out to us and we'll fit you in. That's our promise. And
if you're making rage bait comments on our podcast, I'd love to have you on too, honestly. So
Yes.
I've been trying to find somebody that like absolutely opposes us. And I'm like, I'd love to sit down and talk to you.
They never want to.
Find out what your thoughts are.
It's hard to crawl out of the basement to do something like that. So
we were definitely excited because it is a whole group of people that are not NIR or KCRCC.
Right. Cool.
You guys have a whole different
and
reach.
And that's why we've taken that stance of like, we're not going to line with anyone. Obviously, everybody knows we're conservative, right? That's true. But we don't want to line with anyone because we don't want to shut people out. Right. I think everybody should be able to have a voice.
Well, it's also one of those things where, I heard, I heard Joe Rogan the other day on one of his podcasts. He was talking about it, and he goes, if people are taking political advice from me, he goes, you need to get it. I think that's kind of the same stance we have. I don't ever want to give people political advice on how they should vote. I would love people to have information and be able to make a good decision on that. In fact, I think it's good that we don't ever even say who we vote for until afterwards.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important that people, once again, get to meet the candidates and understand where you guys are at, whether or not you can be bought,
right.
And what your purpose is for what you're going to do. Because like we started this podcast, I didn't even know really what an assessor does.
Right.
I really don't.
And that is one of the most bipartisan positions there are, because I'm coming out to value your property. I don't care if you're
numbers, right?
Democrat, independent, a Republican. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's about being fair.
Mm-hmm. So question about that real quick. Mm-hmm. When you guys set levies, you said you set levies, right? Or
not our office, but the county does.
So you guys come up with numbers. I've always heard you can make the numbers say whatever you want. Is there a very strict guideline in terms of how you guys value properties? Is it very transparent to people so they can see it?
Yeah.
And is there any gray area in it? Or is it like when you assess a house, is a countertop worth X amount and an acre is worth X amount? Is it always the same, or is there a gray area in between all that?
It is. I'm sure you guys have seen many appraisals for the bank. So that's fee appraisal, where it's one house, one person. We're doing a whole entire neighborhood. So yes, when we look at the sales, that is what we're looking at in the condition. So But if you go upgrade your countertops tomorrow, we don't know this, and we're not going to come out and look at your countertops.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's the most important is when it very first is constructed, that we have it on the roll correctly. Because the rest of the time, most of the time, it's just riding the wave. We're just values go up, values go down. And that's essentially what the assessor's office is. It's just for tax purposes. This is not fee.
So you guys help obviously determine the values of things so we can pull in taxes and all that stuff. Who do I talk to about how the money gets spent? Is there a person that I can talk to about that?
In the assessor's office?
No, just in general.
The commissioners.
Okay.
The commissioners do the budgets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they approve all the budgets. And so, yeah, and then there's different taxing districts everywhere.
Okay.
For a long time, Post Falls, which I think it still is the highest taxing district.
Yeah.
But before it was so vast. I mean, to get police all the way out to Hauser, see how far it was? It used to be really far away. Now it's like 5 minutes somehow.
Yep.
You know, I think that's good that you said that, because a lot of people wonder, how is my money getting spent? Who's making those decisions? And it's the 3 county commissioners that are approving those budgets.
Correct.
So, you know, that's important. If you have questions about that, you know, I've always wondered, is it the treasurer? Is it the assessor? Once again, I mean, I don't have as good of a knowledge of how even local government works, right? And all those positions. I've never wanted to run for that.
Right.
So hearing that it's 3 people that are basically allocating your money, I think that's where a lot of people have a lot of dissent, is because they see areas that are not getting attention and others that are, that they disagree with.
Right.
And those are the people to talk to about it.
Well, and it is all on YouTube. It's all filmed. And so we all go up to the commissioners and present our budget for the next year. And we tell you what we're spending our money on. The assessor's office is pretty big. I believe it's 20% of the budget.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot of employees. So.
It's a lot of employees. Yeah. Yeah. The sheriff has a good chunk of that too.
So the sheriff actually falls under the assessor's office?
No, the sheriff is under the county.
Under the county. Got it.
Yes. And so that's who does our budgets. Obviously, the cities all do their own budgets.
Got it. You said the DMV was under the assessor, though, correct?
We house them, yes.
Okay. So I saw them,
strange.
and then I also saw that it's ran by the
ITD.
sheriff.
Oh, that's licensing.
Licensing. Okay, see? I'm getting it all.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm messing everything up here.
Yeah, ITD is who does we do the tabs in your license plates.
Got it.
The driver's license part is the sheriff.
That's the sheriff. Okay.
It's so strange because other states where you come from is like DMV does all of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's under the state. So
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah.
Okay. But on that note, so you're running for Kootenai County Assessor. They assess like Coeur d'Alene City as well?
We assess everything in the county.
Okay.
Yes. So the cities, like when we give a rough idea, well, typically we would give each county or city an idea of what we think their growth looks like so that they can see their numbers. Like we think you're probably got an extra $2 million coming towards you in new construction. They use that for their budgets. So that's why we need to be pretty accurate on ours, because it helps the cities run theirs.
Okay. That makes sense.
Question, as a lifelong resident, how do you feel about growth here? And a realtor, so you're the problem.
Yes. You are selling everything.
I'm selling everything. Yep. My test as a realtor is, can you drive a roundabout? If you don't know how to get through a roundabout, you are not welcome here.
I got stuck in one time.
Well, when you're rolling code 3 as a cop, you go straight over it.
Right?
Just for the record.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's easy.
I mean, I've been here since the 70s.
Wow.
Yeah. And everything was far away. Like Hayden was really far away, and Dalton was.
You know, it's still in the same place, right?
I know. It's so crazy.
Time warps now.
It is so crazy. Same with downtown Coeur d'Alene. I mean, it used to be everything was down here. The one movie theater, the Wilma, was
we
down.
talked about that. Yeah, it was where that
now
little
it's a park.
Is. Yeah.
They tore it
I
down.
wish I could have seen that.
No
Yeah.
way.
And then where like Tito's and all that was JCPenney's, and it was 2 stories.
I love JC
Good old JCPenney's downtown.
JC
Yeah,
Penney's,
and-
Mervyn's, let's go.
Oh yeah, we had a Sears, but it was on 4th Street, and it was only where you could order things. It wasn't an actual store. It was only
What? So you had to go in the Sears magazine?
Yeah, we'd get the big catalog.
Yes.
And I would like circle everything I wanted from Santa.
That was
like,
exactly. See, my son's sitting in here right now. That's how we had to shop before.
Yeah. And
Okay.
you mail it in.
I would
Yeah.
go through
And
there.
you wait like 6
You
weeks.
go and you pay the lady, and then they call you and tell you your order has arrived.
I was,
Oh, that's cool.
I was super weirded out though. I'll be honest. I'm like 9 years old and I'm like, oh, cool. And then I'm like, women's lingerie. I'm like, this is odd. Like it was all the same book.
Sure, that's what you
Yeah,
did.
that's exactly what I
Okay.
said. This is
Okay.
odd.
Wow.
So, but it's funny because I remember ordering all my Christmas gifts like that. I would
Yeah.
circle them too, and I'd like pull a page out and
Yeah.
give it to my dad, and you have to put in the big order.
Yeah.
They deliver to you. I don't even know how it got to us. I don't know,
Yeah.
Santa might have
Wagon.
actually brought that. I don't know.
Yeah.
In a wagon.
My
Yeah.
Santa
That's
didn't
cool.
pay attention very well. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't circle that.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
So,
So the growth has been, it's growing up here, it felt like there really wasn't a ton to do. And I say that with the fact that we've all always gone out hiking, camping.
You hunt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fish. I mean, it's just what you do. So I don't know that I actually think it's fun as a child.
Sure.
Like we want, clubs and the things you see on TV.
Everybody that grew up in a small town, I grew up in a small town too, and same thing. I got out
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
as soon as I could.
No, I had gone to Seattle and was like, yes. And then it was like, no.
Take me home.
Came
yeah,
back.
you realize how quickly your brain just dies when every bit of entertainment you have is paid for.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking
Mm-hmm.
about that, and it had never occurred to me. I was like, what? That's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, here, yes, you have to pay for your fishing license.
Right, but
But it's cheap. It's like, that's not
Yeah.
a thing. It's
But
like
I'm
saying
saying
to go to
also,
a
like-
concert or
Oh,
this.
yeah.
you know, it's like you sit somewhere and something entertains you. Something does it. You can do it in very good climates. I mean, you can go inside. You can do all this stuff. Where up here, it's like, well, if you want to go do that fishing and it's raining, well, it sucks outside. And there's
put the
something
gear
about
on.
learning how to be around the elements and it being something so primal like that. And honestly, how many times you hear about it? I bought my kids all these cool presents and they're playing with the boxes.
Oh, yeah. for
Right?
sure.
Like that type of mentality of the fact that you have to imagine things, you have to go do it. That doesn't happen with a lot of those big cities.
No.
You kind of spoon fed everything. And I think it honestly kills a lot of your desire to go out and explore and be inventive and all those things. Right.
Right. Well, and I think you learn differently growing up here because I have people who, I mean, you look at it on TV and you see the beautiful river and all this. It's so relaxing. And I look at it and it's like, oh, yeah, but it could rain. Do you have the right shoes on? Are you prepared? Do you have any bear spray? I mean, I think just growing up here, that's how you look at things are you prepared?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think cities have made humanity soft.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, they're really good at dodging fentanyl zombies, but they have that skill set for sure. And that is a skill set. But otherwise, it's made them very soft, I think. Where you come up here, and I think that's a big draw for people coming up here is they want to return to that lifestyle of being self-sufficient, relying on your neighbor a little bit, having community, growing your own food, hunting,
Talking
fishing,
to your neighbor.
talking, right? Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a big draw. And if you don't like that stuff, don't come here. It's fine.
Right.
Stay in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think everybody comes here with those notions that they're going to do that, and they get the chickens and they make their own soap.
Hell yeah.
And after about 2 years, it kind of is
You know
like,
what?
well, I could just buy it cheaper.
You really got to dive into stuff you want to do. And I look at that, people say like, oh my gosh, I'd love to move to, or I'll call people and I say, well, where do you live? They're like, oh man, we're only 2 blocks from the beach. How often you go? About twice a year. Like, well, I go to the beach twice a year. I don't know if it's worth living there and paying that money for that thing. And same thing up here. You get a lot of people. When we came up here, the city beach was like, we're like, this is amazing. I haven't been to city beach in like 4 years. Yeah. We find other private beaches. We go on our boat.
Secrets.
That's exactly
Right?
it. I'm like, no, the last thing you're going to see is any local downtown on the 4th of July. We're
The only time you see us there is in the wintertime when we're cold plunging and nobody else is out
Right,
there. And
exactly.
But truthfully, though, a couple years for the
Polar bear?
No, for the parade, the fireworks and everything else for what is it? The ceremony, the Christmas lighting ceremony.
The lights, yeah.
Oh,
So how everybody puts their chairs down there? Oh, I went full
genius,
redneck. I'm
dude.
like,
That
you know
was-
what?
this was the best thing
Let's
you ever
get
did.
let's get our patio furniture. So we got our couch and everything else. We took it down there in the truck. We set it all up. Everybody's all comfy. We had this nice. Everybody's like, wow. I'm like, yeah.
It was amazing.
awesome.
This year we were in the parade, but we had
Like,
plans
don't
to like bring lamps and like really do it up.
Yeah, like set up a whole living room.
Yeah.
Please don't encourage people. They'll be out
I'm
there
just
with
saying,
their little
it's
gas
more-
fireplaces. And,
Have a good time,
Good
dude.
idea.
A little beer fridge. It'd be phenomenal.
Cooking some hot dogs on the gas fire. That's a great idea. I like this.
It's a good idea.
yes.
Cool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
you coming on. This has been really informative. And best of luck to you in the
Thank
election
you.
coming up in May. So get out and vote.
Please.
And,
please.
we're provide that information. You guys make the decision however you want. And
Allison, is there a way that if we have listeners, and good luck, by the way, in the election and everything else, I hope it goes well. Is there a way that if people want to get in contact with you or understand your agenda or anything else, how should they do that?
Yeah, we're on just about every platform, and it's Allyson, the number 4 Assessor.
How do you spell Allison?
ALLYSON.
All right.
I
You
know.
know that was going to be a mess, right?
Yes.
ALLYSON.
Oh, my mom's so creative.
for Assessor, and that's
Yeah.
2 double S's, by the way.
Yeah.
.com.
Yep.
Okay. So that's your website. Cool.
Yeah.
So go there if you want to get more information about her, and we'll see if the other candidate reaches out to us.
Yeah.
Allison for Assessor. Hey, good luck.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.